Hello, lovebirds. Welcome to Life Study Library. My name is Lye Yosh. In this channel, you'll be able to learn about these interesting and educational science and psychology that might change your life for the better. In this video, we're back to everyone's favorite topic, romance and relationships. If this interests you, then please enjoy the video and don't forget to like and subscribe to Life Study Library if you find it interesting or educational. Thank you for doing all that, and now let's get going. Alright, today's video might be interesting to some of you because it's about how to maintain the relationship you already have. I sometimes talk about attraction and how to use science and psychology to make that other person like you back. Even outside of my channel, there are too many books or conferences or videos about attraction and things that happen at the beginning of the relationship. But today, we're going to talk about how to maintain that relationship and how you can use science and psychology to keep it as satisfied and fresh as possible. Today's study is a review of research from the University of Illinois, and this professor called Brian Ogalski compiled an insane amount of studies from the past about relationship maintenance, which he collected from as far as the 1950s, and his paper consists of over 1,100 studies. His main objective of the research was to figure out what kind of qualities do you need to keep your relationship stable and healthy. He then concluded that there are 14 important points when it comes to relationship maintenance and what you should know to keep your relationship as fresh and fulfilling as possible. According to his claims, the reason for his insane endeavor was because most of the previous studies that looked at relationship, or not only about romantic relationship, but also things like friendship, most of the past studies focus on the final segment in a relationship. So things like breakups or infidelity, things that are most often considered as negative in that romantic journey. Professor Ogalski looked at this quote-unquote trend and was like, yeah, this is helpful indeed, but there aren't a lot of studies about the positive aspects of relationship building, so I'm gonna go study that instead. The human tendency to focus on negative things so that it can avoid harmful consequences does make sense. I assume he had a lot of pressure when trying to find evidence that sorta goes against the current trend of the time, even if both sides had legitimate evidence that supported their individual claims. So we all should take our hats off in respect. But yeah, let's talk about this 14 points he had found in his research about what exactly you should do in order to keep your relationship as healthy and enjoyable for as long as possible. Now, some of them do kind of talk about the same thing, so I'll try to make it as painless as possible for you to learn. Alright, strategy number 1 is positive assumption about your partner and the overall relationship. This one should be fairly easy to understand. Couples who last longer tend to look at their partners as better looking and more intelligent than the average, and them together as more special compared to other couples. This does sound quite obvious, but let's talk about the mechanism. This is somewhat related to what's known as the Dunning-Kruger effect, which is about people who are less capable tend to overestimate their abilities. And in this case, the bias is working so that the couple, whether or not they're actually healthy and successful, is having positive emotions about the relationship. My interpretation of it is that since the world and your life can constantly hand-fist you with doubts about your relationship, and there will always be something that makes you think the relationship is not working, this level of inflated confidence about your perceived success of your relationship makes sense. And once this facade disappears, things start to head south and you might realize the reality. I always thought of this as a bad thing, like you're kind of faking that everything's fine, but in this case, it might work as a relatively healthy way to maintain your relationship. Okay, moving on to the second point, which is about positive interpretation. This is similar to the first point, but this one is more about specific instances towards your partner's actions. Even if your partner has made a mistake, you keep on being empathetic towards them, positively assuming that, oh, my girlfriend or boyfriend is acting mean because they're having a bad day, rather than assuming they're acting mean because they have a short temper. You see, it's about positively interpreting their negative behavior as a result of the situation, not as their core personality. This allows a lot more room for forgiveness when looking at their misbehaving, which will be frequent in small quantities, and it connects back to the first point as you perceive your partner better because you put them in a higher position than other people. And before I move on, I want to make sure you understand that any of these points will turn out negative when you overdo it. I'm only saying that these are good tactics you can do when it comes to solely maintaining your current relationship, whether it leads to further positive or negative outcomes. And I'm also aware that once the relationship does turn south, doing this will be even harder. Okay, third point is about active participation to solve issues. Whenever there's an issue of some kind, the couple actively talks about it with each other and at least demonstrate to each other that they're willing to solve it for the betterment of the relationship. This again seems super obvious, but far too many people are ignoring to do this because they think it's an obvious reaction we will take to the problem. Too many people will think, well, there wouldn't be any issue if talking with each other can solve it in the first place, when they haven't even tried that. Well, according to the study, coming up with an actual solution isn't even the point of it because the important thing is to let your partner know that you actually sat down with them, listened to their side of the story, talked about your side, and then tried hard to think of the solution. And as a result, a good idea that both you and your partner can agree might pop up, or one of you might have to compromise, or maybe no good idea comes up. That doesn't really matter here, as long as you let your partner know that you are actively trying to find a solution. And another thing is that if and when you two come up with a solution, you have to act on it. This kind of mutual aid in a romantic sense is very important for reasons you might have guessed, because this is probably the most obvious sign that you care about the other person. For example, if your partner is doing the dishes, you can help out. If they're planning on doing something, you can ask them if they need your help or something. One key thing to note here is that this kind of caring acts stop being beneficial when you two are already in a conflict, because your active support will only be seen by the partner as a method of forgiveness. Have you ever tried to help out your partner do chores, for example, after you got in a fight with each other, and your partner looked at you and said, "You're only doing this so I'll be less mad at you"? What you need to do is to help your partner out with trivial stuff on a daily basis, not just during times when you feel like the relationship is starting to fall apart. This is another one of those essential acts of kindness that people often neglect, so it's important to keep this in your mind. Okay, so another important thing that I briefly described already is the notion that you two are a team, not individuals. The study shows that couples that last longer tend to have this mindset and proceed their daily action and choices in a us or we mindset. I've talked about how using plural first-person pronouns when describing your relationship is scientifically beneficial when it comes to relationship strengthening and maintenance in my previous video. It's called "Look at How They Text: Indicators of Successful versus Failing Relationships." As always, the link to the video is in my description, so you can go check it out after you finish this video. Essentially, the frequent use of words like we or us when describing your relationship indicates to your partner that you view yourselves as a tag team that will tackle the problem together rather than you guys being two separate people. I'm pretty sure you're gonna feel super happy hearing this, and then hearing your partner refer to the two of you as we or us, because you might feel emotionally connected. But this has an actual scientific mechanism as to how you can maintain your current relationship as a healthy and a strong one. I've talked about this we talk in the other videos, so if you want to know more about this stuff, like in what situation it works the best and things like that, you should definitely go check it out after finishing this video. Moving on to the next point, one that was pretty surprising to me was prayer. Of course, this does not have to do with any religious or spiritual stuff, as according to the study, it is merely about praying for the well-being of your partner. I was initially feeling a little iffy about this, but as I read into it, I realized that what's important here is the praying for the well-being of your partner. That's it. That's all the praying you need to do, the study says. And more specifically, the act of praying for your love or other important people in your life, like your family, works similarly to when you're doing mindfulness meditation. I'm not completely sure if I've talked about mindfulness meditation in detail in any of my previous videos. If I haven't already, I'll talk about this topic in my future video, so yeah, be excited about that. What's important about this in the current video is that the act of praying works as something similar to the mindfulness meditation, where you focus on nothing else but your relationship and your partner as you meditate, which allows you to reflect and improve on anything you realize where you might be lacking. By praying for your partner's prosperity, you might realize, oh, I'm actually not talking to my partner as much as I should. I gotta make time to chat with them and talk about their days and stuff. Something like this. Praying for your partner's well being leads to realizations like this, and you can make adjustments to make it better. Okay, so at this point, I feel like the video is getting pretty long, and I don't want you to start losing focus, so I'll end the video right here. There will be a part 2 on this topic in my future videos, so be prepared to learn more about this topic later. Of course, you can overachieve by reading the study itself. Whichever you prefer is fine by me. I've talked about today's recommended videos that you should watch next earlier, so now I'll talk about the recommended book of the day that you should read next. Today's book is called The Assertiveness Workbook, How to Express Your Ideas and Stand Up for Yourself at Work and in Relationships, 2nd edition, by Randy J. Paterson. Now, before we get into the summary of the book, let me just rant to y'all that I had so much trouble searching for a helpful and informative book specifically on romantic communication. I don't know if I'm just not looking at the right place, but we need a significant reformation on publishing books about romantic psychology. I know it's difficult for a number of reasons, but we need some good quality info in this topic. But more importantly, the book. The book's main claim is about the importance of assertion when it comes to building and keeping a quality relationship with your partner, not just as lovers who are attracted to each other, but as two or more individual people becoming a team. Assertion or assertive communication in essence is about being able to express and communicate your thoughts and emotion in a respectful manner to your partner and letting your partner do the same to you. Basically, a relationship where the two of you can talk about anything without receiving a negative intent from each other. And people say that, oh, I already do this with my partner, but you have to remember that being assertive doesn't mean not caring about what and how you talk to the other person, which a lot of people tend to mistake as. So if you haven't already, you definitely need to have certain rules when communicating with your partner. Both sides of the relationship has to have absolute certainty that you both can say, I will listen to my partner's claims without taking offense or attacking them. And I know for sure that my partner will also do the same. And yes, you probably guessed right that this is easier said than done. So this book allows you to test your levels of assertion and provide tips about how you can improve it. So I think it's a really good idea if you work on this together with your partner as something like a couple's activity. Additionally, I know that this video is about romantic relationships, but you can totally use the techniques learned in this book to strengthen platonic relationship as well, as being assertive with your friends is also important in strengthening that relationship. And along with, you can check my video recommendations in the same place down in my description. And that's it for this video. I think my audio quality glitched at some point, but I think now it's fixed. Anyways, you've been watching Life Study Library. I've been your host, Lye Yosh, and yeah, I'll see you in another video. Happy romance. Stay safe, kids.